Hey guys, it's Chris Mincolla with the Mincolla Group over at West USA Realty with the real estate pros over here. We're going to give you our weekly housing market update. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to keep this as short and sweet as I can for you. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to jump right in. Got some exciting stuff happening in the economy and with the housing market. Private payrolls, according to ADP, rose 109,000 in April, topping expectations. ADP says they were, let's see, 109,000 private companies. Now, the Labor Bureau and Labor Statistics will be coming out with the bigger set of numbers tomorrow. So I'll update you on that next week. But this kind of gives us kind of a leading indicator into that. And it's a step up from the 61,000 created in March and better than the Dow Jones consensus estimated only 84,000, so better than estimated it would be. Reported Wednesday, that was yesterday. Education and health services again dominated, adding 61,000 jobs as usual. Those are usually our big sectors. Keep in mind, you know, uh, the last year they've gutted so much of the government employees that were there that were kind of the dead weight. Sorry if you were one of them, but we just don't need a bloated government because that just causes more debt, more printing of money, and all those sorts of things. And we actually have the smallest government workforce now, federal government workforce than we've had since like the 1960s, I believe. So that's a good thing, especially being a constitutional republic, not a communist government. Those are all good things. So, besides the fact that they had those revisions of over 1 million jobs in the beginning of last year, coming out of the last administration, that weren't really there, we have government government jobs not being added, being taken away, and we also have more uh, native born Americans here, United States of Americans, being the ones that are getting these jobs. So when you kind of tweak all that and look at those data points, I'm not saying it's the greatest jobs market in the world that we've ever had, but when you kind of break it all down, it's not doing horrible, especially when we look at things like construction, which was up a little bit the last couple months, but we have another 10,000 being added in construction, which was good. And then I'm going to jump down here because we want to look at construction and we also want to look at modest gains that we had in manufacturing. Now, you're going to see this number jump up. And as we get out of this conflict in Iran, which should be coming soon, you're going to see energy prices go down. You're going to see inflation drop like a rock. You're going to see interest rates drop. The Fed fund rate will drop. We have a new Fed chair coming on. He won't be having his first meeting till June when they meet again. They won't be meeting in May. They just met a week ago. Jerome Powell is going to stick around because of the um, investigation going on by the Inspector General versus the DOJ. So we'll kind of see where that all goes. And then I think you're going to see a whole restructuring there at the Fed because, this idea that, we're going to print money, and then after we print the money and raise inflation, we're going to tame inflation by raising the interest rates. That's why you're losing. That's why most Americans who don't have a hedge against the inflation and don't, know how to hedge their own personal economy and get ahead of things by being owners and owning equity in things, owning their homes, owning real assets, real hard assets, or being part of a larger game, which is the trade going on in Wall Street, where that's all fixed. Or you're not part of Congress, which seems to be some of the best traders in the world for some reason. I can't imagine why. Um, you're always getting crushed, and then you throw on the taxes into that. But now we have lower taxes. This year, everybody should have seen a little bit better return for the most part, especially those who really need it in their tax return. So, great way to look at things, and also maybe use those tax returns to invest in real estate, which is a great way to increase your wealth. When you talk to a lot of people out there who made money in other industries, other things, other companies, whatever. They make their money, but then they grow their wealth many times in real estate because it's a real hard asset that always goes up. So, over time. So, it's a great way to diversify. So good information there. You're going to see the manufacturing go up as time goes on. We've got all kinds of things being added into the economy. Here's one thing I just wanted to highlight as part of that. Well, yesterday we had another record on the stock market, record day. President says, I made the U.S. $45 billion in 8 months. So if you invested in uh, President Trump's Intel investment, you buy at $20 a share when that first happened, and you see that net worth in those shares go up to $97 or $45 billion in total. And you look at all the money that's he's got coming in, it's like, I think it's up to like 18 trillion now or more. Uh, and these reshoring these companies and manufacturing companies, um, you know, it's just truly amazing. We've never seen growth like this before, and some of it's, yep, some of it's going to take another 6 months to 2 years to really see the fruits of that. But we're big boys and girls, we're adults, and we know that stuff doesn't happen overnight. But it's all coming with that capex boom, and over little by little, and as rates drop and energy prices drop, and all these things get it falling in line. The as Logan Monoshami puts it, the trifecta of the economy and for housing was lower energy costs, lower interest rates, and a lower dollar, because with a lower dollar, a lot of these things become possible. So pending home sales, this was great. So you have Redfin, um, who has been saying, the biggest seller gap, and the all these different things over the last few months here, like this whole idea that the housing economy was doing so bad. Pending home sales hit highest level in nearly 4 years. So they need to really look at their data a little bit better, because they were kind of doom and gloomers out there with a lot of them, and now we see pending home sales hit highest level in nearly 4 years. And we'll get into why that is here in a minute, but that is very good, very good. So new home sales surge in March as prices fall to 5-year low. Now, for the new home market, new home resale, two different markets really, because builders, number one, are business people. Um, and they're just looking at the bottom line. So if they need to lower their prices, they just do it to get it off the books and move on to the next thing. They can also um, give an artificial economy in housing, because not only are they brand new homes and all the warranties and everything, and the light, bright and airy and all that, but they're giving you right now great incentives. They're paying for closing costs. They're buying down rates where we've got rates that are in the threes and fours. So they're able to offer things that some are now. Now, some of that will depend on location, whether or not you want to go with a resale home or a new home, depending on the location, how far you have to drive to work, family, friends, all that. But they are surging in the number of sales. So from that standpoint, that's a good benchmark. For those who had this idea that we were going to, have some issues with that, not so much. Median new home sales price unexpectedly plunges 21,000, 21.6K, the biggest drop since 2024, to 387,000. This is the new median new home sales, new construction. in March, the lowest since 2021. All right. So, but we see more construction because there is more inventory needed. They just had to adjust their pricing. Now, some of that is also going to be adjusted in their favor with a lot of the regulations being taken away that we talked about the last couple of weeks on a lot of the nonsensical things like environmental stuff, which can make up all those regulations can basically make up about 25% of what it costs to build a home. Everybody says the tariffs. Well, really, in reality, that may make up at the most 7%, okay, of what that could possibly impact. Not that it is, but what it could possibly impact with lumber and things like that. So the bigger thing is the regulations, and those are being taken away. Now, where it's still the sticking point is your own local governments, your own city and state, local county governments. And if you want changes there, you just have to get involved. You have to vote and do all those things in order to change that. But that is really where the rubber meets the road, is in the local governments. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is uh, this little stat right here. Older millennials, now ages 36 to 45, have quietly become the highest earning, biggest spending generation home buyers in the market per NAR. They post the highest median household income of any generational group, 132,700, by the largest homes at a median of 2,100 square feet, and are most likely to have children living under their roof. Okay, so affordability is definitely an issue, but we can see there that they are making up a big gap. Gen Z is really where we're having an issue, and I'm going to talk about this more in a second, but 40% of home buyers got financial help with their down payment. That's up from 35% from 2023. 78% of Gen Z buyers, 78% got financial help. Now, historically, a lot of young people need help, but probably more after COVID than before, for sure. And 56% of millennials, because of the cost of everything going up. And then we hit that cost level, and then it just stays there, even though the rate of inflation may be dropping, minus the Iran conflict. That's just a temporary thing. But what I wanted to point out to you is that we have a new program with our loan officer and mortgage broker, Andrew Fisher, with Simplify Home Loans. He has a new program. He's got all kinds of down payment assistance programs, a VA specialist. Um, he's got conventional FHA for first-time home buyer programs, but this $10,000 grant program that he has, it's brand new. And the cool thing about it is, even if it doesn't matter if you're doing conventional, FHA, or even VA, you already have no down payment with VA, you can take advantage of this grant, get $10,000, and you can use it towards buying down your rate even more than the lower rates he's already going to give you. You can use it towards your closing costs, buy down your rate. Even if in order to qualify, or in order to qualify at a higher credit score, you can use this grant. You can use this grant as a way to pay off your car loan debt, student loan debt, credit card debt. It's a phenomenal program, and it is a grant. Okay, it's a soft second. The only thing is you can't pay it off in 5 year for 5 years. Okay, but you're probably going to make 10 grand or more in 5 years on owning your home. Most people aren't moving for at least 7 to 10 years now, is kind of the average. So it's a great program. Definitely talk to him about that other program he has for down payment assistance. But this is something you can use alongside other things that I would, no matter who you are, whether you're moving up, moving down, first time home buyer, already own a home, whatever. Talk to him about this program. Reach out to us. We'll put you in contact with him, and we'll get you all set up, making sure that you're getting a really sweet deal on top of the sweet deals we can already get you. So, the Many home buyers are held back by financial misconceptions. Misconceptions. One of the biggest ones we hear is, don't I need 20% down? Or I don't have a down payment, so I can't buy a house. Not true. Okay. Because there are these type of grant programs, there's down payment assistance programs. What does my credit score need to be in order to qualify? Should I not, buy, even if I can, and wait to get a higher uh, credit score, all these sorts of things that are myths. Think of it this way: the longer you hold, like that stock thing I showed you earlier with Intel, you get in. The sooner you get into the game, the sooner you start gaining equity. You get tax benefits on your home. Um, all kinds of other benefits that you'll get by owning your home. But the biggest one is equity and compound interest, which Einstein says was the eighth wonder of the world, because it's not just the equity goes up, the value goes up. You're also locking in or possibly even lowering your mortgage rate later as rates come down. You can refinance, uh, but your rent, your mortgage payment is not going up, right? Also, you're paying down the balance. Okay, so over time, you can use that equity towards other things. Eventually, you don't have any payment. So there's a lot of different factors to go into this. And think of it like this: if you're using it like for each 100,000, let's just use 100. I know you're not buying a house for 100,000 in most cases. Okay, but let's just use an easy round number that people can understand. People think 100,000. Okay, I put down, 10%, or let's say 3% on 100,000. So what's that? $3,000, right? And they're thinking, okay, over time, yeah, the value goes up. But think about it this way, if your home goes up, uh, you know, $30,000, you just got a 30% rate of return on that home. Now you multiply that by what a home, entry level home price may be for you, or move up, move down price may be for you. And you think about it that way, and how home prices gradually always go up. Yet we had one period of time where we had about a 4-year window of a real bad issue, um, and that was due to other behind the scene factors. But you had 250 to 400,000 homes going on the market every day. You got too much inventory. People weren't buying homes because they were just losing their homes. So, that's not a normal scenario. Normally, right now we're lucky if we get, 70, 80,000 a week coming online versus that 250 to 400. More of a normal market would be anywhere between 80 to 110,000 a week. So you can see the difference there. And locally and nationally, we could triple the amount of inventory and we still wouldn't be hitting those numbers. So with the way we are, even though we're at pre-pandemic levels on inventory right now, but there's a lot of these myths that you just need to sit down with a professional, sit down with us. We'll show you what it's all about. We'll explain these things to you in great detail so we can help you through all that. But anyway, um, oh, we already went over this. Why do I have it twice? Okay. Looking at the oil prices, because this again really sets everything with 10-year treasury, with energy prices and everything. And we don't even get oil really, maybe 3%, if that, from the Strait of Hormuz, from Iran area there. But we are tied in with the global markets. And so, therefore, even though we are the number one exporter now of oil, and there's been a shakeup in the last couple of weeks with OPEC, which is a good thing, um, we're seeing, that these oil prices are definitely affecting us. But right now we're at 97.6%, or I'm sorry, $97 and 62 cents for a barrel of oil. It was higher. It's come down a little bit with some of the talks going on. Hopefully that'll just drop back down to where we, were before, down here in this normal range in the 60s, or closer to $60 a barrel. So we'll keep an eye on that. 10-year treasury today, right now, 4.3. That means, historically, our 30-year conventional mortgage rate should be less than 2% of that, but we are at 6.4. Okay. So the mortgage spreads have gotten better than they were. I mean, if this was, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we'd be, in the high to mid sevens, right in that range with the mortgage spread between the 10-year treasury and where the 30-year mortgage is. So we're in a much better position this year. That's why we see more new homes, more resale homes being sold. And getting into that data, mortgage purchase applications, this is a forward-looking indicator. It's not a one for one. And people say it's not exactly going to happen that way. No, it's not. But we have to look at trend lines. Theoretically, in the next 30 to 90 days, this is a trend line that tells us that we are on the rise. Also, we know that 21% more people are applying for mortgages compared to last year. That's an indicator. People are out there and they want to purchase a home. They're getting a more pre-approval for a home loan and they're going out there and looking at houses. Okay. We have, more buyers out there than we did a year ago. So that's good. Okay. You can see where we are now versus last year. That's a big jump. All right. So national single family inventory growth is at 2.33%. Now we're seeing that this number is actually dropping off. So we could cross right here soon and actually see a little bit of a drop off there. But we had a pretty good backstop of inventory. People who decided not to relist, a lot of people did relist, but not everybody did. Because last year, I mean, we were in the 30s at one point on this number. So big difference, but still low end of the pre-pandemic levels. We went through jobless claims, um, but that's down to 189,000. So you know, unless that number hits 300,000 for unemployment claims, we're not going to see the Fed pull off any alarms as far as the whole Fed board is concerned. Now we're going to see, I think, a big shakeup at the Fed on a lot of different levels, different models, different ways that they're pulling the data that they're looking at, more recent data, not rear view mirror. Who cares about that data and the idea that the shelter costs have been coming down for about the last 28 months, 29 months now. So national single family new listings, we definitely see that this number has definitely dropped off uh, for the new listings as a whole. But we were up here at 83. Now for new listings for the week, we're at 73,000. Remember I told you 250 to 400,000 during the crash? Guys, we got to look at reality, not the doom and gloomers, the doomers out there on X and online. This is something that Logomo and Xiaomi put together. It's like, yeah, home price crash predictions. It's not happening. You just don't have the inventory. But there's been a little bit of a surge there in foreclosures. Yeah, there has. But remember, there's also been a lot of programs that kept people from foreclosing since COVID. Okay. There still is some of that restructuring that goes on with banks. So, it's almost hard to foreclose today. Not that it can't happen, but it's much harder than it used to be. Okay. Uh, Before COVID. So again, nothing crazy or to be worried about there. The spread between the 30-year mortgage rate, 10-year treasury, right now at 1.93%. Okay. And we look at where we were last year. Look at the difference the last 2 years. Wow. We were right around the same time. We were 2.35, and the year before we were at like 2.59. Huge difference. That spread has kept mortgage rates at a much lower level, okay, than we were before. Big difference. So we looked at the mortgage rate. Now, again, if you want to know what a good mortgage rate looks like right now, here you go. Again, Andrew Fisher, Simplify Home Loans. Yes, he is a Marine, reservist, and he has conventional 30-year at 5.6%. FHA 5.2, VA 5.2. And again, you can throw that $10,000 grant right in there. You know, I mean, why wouldn't you? You'd be crazy not to. So there's that. And then you've got the ARM. And the ARM program, 5-year ARMs, that's 5.25%, FHA 4.75%, and 4.75% on the VA. So you can get lower rates now. There's no reason not to do that at all. Just let's sit down, have a discussion about that, and we'll walk you through all of the different strategies we have of getting you a lower payment and finding something that makes sense uh, and that fits your budget. So right now we've got at the very moment right now we've got a little over 25,000 homes for sale of all property types. If we go single family right here in the Phoenix area, we've got just over 19,000 of the single family homes. Okay, give you a quick idea on the stats for inventory. If we look at today, we've got active listing count, new listings, 18,884. The last 30 days, that's down here. So nationally, it's down. Here, it's down. So we a little bit less competition if you're thinking about selling. If you're thinking about buying, you still have good choices. You still have a good number of choices because we kind of had that backstop, like I was talking about before. But now the new actives coming online has dropped 1.54% in the last 30 days. In the last 60 days, it's down 1.73%. So if we look at the last 30 days on what's sold, we're up 8.56%. That's a good sign that that number is going up, actually sold. Under contract today, 7,426 in the greater Phoenix area. And the last 30 days, we're up 2%, just over 2% under contract. The last 60 days, we're at 5.38%. All right. Sold to list price ratio. The median is at 98.8% and the average is at 98%. So that's pretty normal. That's actually pretty normal. We like to see that right there at about that 98% mark. That's good. Also, as of today, we've got the median price per square foot is at 266.65 and the average is $290 dollars and 79 cents. So very good, guys. Crowdford not only looks at that data, but then they throw their algorithm into it. And they're saying we're in a buyer's market. It definitely feels like a buyer's market. There's a lot of buyers asking for concessions. Homes are sitting on the market, you know, um, right around 70 days on market, which isn't bad. So we see supply is just over 100, so it's 7 points or 7% over that mid range because under 90 is a buyer's market, over 110 is a seller's market, and right now we're at 82.6. So our demand is a little bit weaker than we would want to see it. We're about 11 points shy of that 100 mark, where these would be totally in balance, and this would be at that point at 100. We'll get there. We'll get there, guys. Once these rates drop, you just watch. Once that oil price goes down, the mirage, and it is a mirage, because remember where we were just about 65, 70 days ago with those low mortgage rates that were nationally in the high fives. We probably would have been lower than that by now. And we see, well, with Jerome Powell, not so much, because 65 to 75% of where, the 10-year treasury and mortgage rates are going to be is what the Fed says, what their stance is. Is it accommodative? Is it dovish? Is it hawkish? And with Kevin Warsh, you're going to see a whole different ball game, guys. Not that he's the be all end all. He's not king of the world, but he's definitely going to be the one doing the messaging. And I think you're going to see a big shakeup at the Fed, and you're going to see a lot of changes in a good way for the consumer. All right, let's just put it that way. Right now, our contract ratio is in the warm zone, just over 30. It's at 37.4 of what's actually under contract versus what's active. So, right now, this week, we are at a just into a warm period. And then if we look at the heat map, Gilbert, parts of Chandler, over here in Phoenix, Tolleson, uh, North Phoenix. Those are all hot areas. Everything here in the middle has been pretty cold for a while, along with Litchfield Park over there, Tempe, all cold. Rest of this is all pretty warm, guys. So, again, kind of like a normal balance market, all right? Guys, a lot of people will say to me, with the advent of AI and all these things, why do we need a real estate agent? Well, number one, a lot of people get themselves into legal issues. They don't negotiate these sorts of things on a regular basis. They don't really understand the process and some of the nuances to the process. Um, and they're not really set up for not only the networking, but the marketing that comes into play and how a home should present well beyond what many people may think that means, and how it's positioned to present well, how it's positioned not only the within the average value range or high end, low end, but what price bracket is it in? Can you see where most of the actual showings are taking place in your neighborhood? I can. Can you see how much people gave up in concessions for people, for buyers that are asking for concessions? It could be anywhere from 1 to 3% or more, um, which is in addition to any price reductions that may be happening in a particular market. I can see those things. So you really want that level of depth, and you want to be able to. Um, I say number one, you can cut through a lot of the noise with some of the old school marketing still, with the mailers, with the door knockers, with sending out messages and calls to neighborhoods. But you also need to market like you're in the 21st century, right? So there's that digital marketing, syndication to all the third party websites online, understanding the algorithms, how to play that, and then the social media play on top of that, right? And already have the connections for the correct professional photos, the positioning of those photos, some of the virtual staging that may even go into that, how to write descriptions for SEO, how to put in correctly everything that need to go into the fields for the MLS, where really over 90% of homes are going to be sold and listed for anyway, and where people are going to be working with an agent, as you can see here in the numbers anyway, as a buyer or seller. So the role isn't shrinking, it's only increasing actually. It was some of the biggest changes we had over the last couple of years with not putting commissions in the MLS, which was really one of the biggest changes that took place. Um, and needing to have some of the disclosures and hiring docs that go into play, which were always there, and commissions were always negotiable. That's really none of that's changed. It's just how it's positioned in the MLS, where those numbers aren't in there. So I'd love to be able to talk to you more about it, give you a buyer or seller consultation, whether it be over the phone initially, with just a quick discovery call, a Zoom call, or an in-person meeting at your home or at our office, and kind of go through all this. Go over the contract so you can see what that looks like. And there are a lot of places where people can get themselves in trouble. A lot of FISBOs, about a third of them, they end up selling their home for almost 30% less than they would with an agent. A lot of times, the lower number on that is at least around 12%. So when you stop and figure, whatever the percent is on those commissions, you're losing more trying to do it on your own, not having the most eyes as possible on that, not having the negotiation, not having the platforms, systems, and processes in place in order to really get that home out there, presented well, marketed well, and negotiated well. Okay. So, guys, if you have any questions about any of those things, I'd love to be able to talk to you more about that and our strategies that we would go through and our systems that we would go through that gets home sold. Yes, it's the people behind it, but it's the systems that really help us make it work for you. So, guys, that's all I got for you today. Please feel free to reach out anytime, and I will talk to you next time.